with Baker DMM, and this is our video digest newsletter. The topic of today's newsletter is going to be Prince died without a will. And before I jump into our discussion, I want to read you some statistics. And they state that in a recent RBC Wealth Management survey of high net worth individuals, only 54% of respondents said they have a will. And while 26% said they have a full transfer plan in place, a surprising 32% said they have done nothing to prepare yet. And when you hear those numbers, it doesn't surprise me as much because I've known these reports and I've seen these studies. Some of you that might be surprising, particularly with the more upper middle class and the upper class individuals not being prepared. It seems highly unlikely that would happen to these individuals, but it does. And I have an article I actually read on a few months ago. I took a trip and was on a plane and was flipping through the magazine, and they had this article that really, it started off about Prince and how he passed away without a will. And for those of you that don't know, Prince died in 2016. And the article, it goes on and it hits on a number of different topics. Prince passing away and not being prepared, not having a will, and how in the next 10, 20, 30 years, there's going to be a massive transfer of wealth, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 trillion, which will be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. And it continues on to talk about how in our society, particularly in the West, the United States, we don't like talking about death and we don't like talking about money, particularly people in the baby boomer generation. These are things that we just don't like to talk about, and typically they're avoided for the most part, in general public and general society, and even within our families. And the article goes on to talk about how we need to, start talking about these things, and particularly with women, because women tend to live longer than men. And in this article, they said, I think it was on average 5 years longer than men. And, it's starting to change, but up until now, in recent years, a lot of times men were more, in control or usually led the task of getting the finances ready and managing the finances and then preparing the family's estate in case someone passed away, and ultimately if that estate was going to be transferred on to either children or grandchildren. And one last thing they talked about in the article was about how there's this misconception, particularly among middle class and the upper lower income, the lower middle class, that because they don't have a substantial amount of wealth, or maybe they don't have millions of dollars in savings, that they don't need to plan, or they don't need to have certain planning documents in place as they age in life and as they start planning for their end of life and who are they going to leave their estates to. And that couldn't be further from the truth. No matter who you are, everybody should at least have the basic minimum documents in place and planning in place in case something should happen to you and you should pass away. And that way, having those minimum documents in place, you can dictate on how you want your estate distributed and where you want your belongings and money and things to go. And the problem is like in Prince's case, not having planned. We need to do a better job of planning ahead of time and not waiting until it's a fire drill and not waiting until the last minute. We really need to change that. And the solution to that, and how do you do that? Number one, by watching this video, you're learning, you're curious, you're trying to improve yourself and your situation, whatever that may be. And then it's acting on it and reaching out to people in your community, financial planners, certified public accountants, lawyers or attorneys, legal professionals, people like Baker DMM, companies like Baker DMM, daily money managers, even insurance professionals, tax professionals, different professionals that have expertise in your community. And it doesn't have to be all of them. It could be some of them or one of them, and just get the ball going and talk to them about whatever they're good at or whatever they're experts at. And then say, hey, you're helping me with taxes, but do you know a good estate planning attorney? Or do you know a good financial advisor, a good financial planner? You know, do you know a good daily money manager that can help with my elderly mother or father or grandmother or grandfather and help them with their day-to-day financial affairs? And once you start connecting the dots, then you can start getting in place all of your getting your financial world organized, getting all of your documents lined up, and then ultimately planning ahead so if something does happen to you, you won't end up like Prince or a number of other people in our country and even around the world really, but particularly in our country, you won't end up like them, and you won't leave that stress and that responsibility. You won't put that weight on the shoulders of your loved ones. And I know, you know, from my own personal experiences with my family, unfortunately, my mom passed away about 10 years ago in 2008. And we did have to, and same thing with her. I mean, she had some of her items in place, but she didn't have a will. She didn't have an enforceable will. And so we had to go through probate court as a family. And then, you know, luckily my brother and sister and I got along, and we were able to each kind of take on a role and do that. But it's very difficult when you want to grieve, and there's so many other things that you could be spending, using your time and doing with your family, to have to stress about the legal side of things, the financial side of things. And if you can plan ahead, not only is it helping you stay in control of where you want your things to go and what you want your money to do, it's a huge relief and burden off the shoulders of your loved ones, your family, your friends, and whoever you are closest to. So if you found this information interesting or helpful, please feel free to share with your family, your friends, or whoever you think might benefit from viewing the information. If you ever have a question you'd like for me to answer in one of our newsletters, go to our website, www.bakerdmm.com. Scroll to the bottom, fill out your name and information, write a few sentences about your question. I'll try to answer that in one of our upcoming newsletters. If you'd ever like to get my help personally and directly, on our website, at the very top, you'll find a request an appointment button as well as our phone number. If you scroll to the bottom and you'd like to book a phone consulting session, click on the PayPal button, enter your information. And with all these options, I'll be in touch with you in 24 to 48 hours to confirm and schedule our appointment. And until then, I will talk to you soon.